Hey everybody, we are live for another Ask the Coaches, and I am so excited today to have my awesome coaches, Coach Annalise and Coach Emily, with me. And today we are going to be talking about brain food and fueling your brain because what we know is that this guy up here runs a whole lot, and how our thoughts leads to our actions, which leads to our behaviors, which is ultimately our habits. So if we can work on our brain and fueling it for success, we're more likely to be successful with it. And before we get in, I do want to quickly do introductions of the coaches. So let's start with Coach Annalise, if you'll just quickly introduce yourself.
Cool. I'm Coach Annalise. I'm a registered dietitian. I've been a dietitian for almost 4 years now, and I've been working with Worksby for a few months. And yeah.
And then Emily.
And then I'm Coach Emily, and I've worked in healthcare for several years, and I've been with Worksby a couple months too. And I'm a certified holistic nutritionist and health coach.
Yes, and we are so blessed to have both of y'all because it's really great to have people that are also not just have a passion for it, but they also have a degree in it and have the ability certification to be able to speak on this with education behind it, but also experience. And so that's really where I find and where I like to make sure that we have people that can give, because this is a hot topic like nutrition. It's like everybody has an opinion on it, and making sure that we're educated and go to reliable sources for your information. So I see Mike's already on. Hey, Mike. Thank you for joining us today. So as we get into Fuel Your Brain, let's continue to please like, subscribe, and share as we continue to bring positivity to your newsfeed, but also education so that hopefully that can lead to inspiration and maybe some transformation. So brain fuel, what do y'all think about it? Let's just go ahead and hop into it. I'll start with Coach Annalise. What are your thoughts about fueling your brain, and why is it even important?
So I guess like one of the things we were talking about prior to this is like certain foods might have the ability to help improve brain function, memory, cognition, things like that. We were talking about some of those foods earlier, and like one of the first ones that I think of is like salmon, any type of fatty fish, those omega-3s. I mean, you can get omega-3s from, chia seeds. You can get them from the fish. There's a lot of different sources of omega-3s, which I actually thought was kind of funny. I accidentally had salmon for lunch today after Mike and I went mountain biking, so that was pretty fun. But that's one of the first things that I think a lot of people think about, that like omega-3s, salmon, fish. It's like a first thought when you think of omega-3s, but that's one of the first foods that I think of whenever I think of getting in, your omega-3s and brain health.
How about you, Coach Emily?
So I think fueling your brain properly is so important because I don't know how many people know this, but your brain actually burns 20% of your daily calories, which is quite a bit. And your brain is, doing everything while you're awake that's subconscious, breathing, heart rate, all of this, you know. And so we need to make sure that the calories or the foods that we're consuming help our brain because it needs it, and it leads to everything else in the body. So I feel like it's a great starting point. If we focus on brain health, everything will follow.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is brain health, it's really not like you have to go out and eat like these unique things to get your memory back that you'll see marketed so well. Really, it is just a well balanced diet. It is, we want, and that's one thing that we were talking about prior is carbs. And oh, how they are hated on. But that's what mainly fuels our brain is carbs. So how can we help people? And this is what I told y'all prior, that I had somebody the other day say, oh, I can't eat that. That has way too many carbs. I'm like, it's made with zucchini. I'm like, that's its number one ingredient. Of course, it's going to look like it's got a higher carb. So what are your comments and thought about carbs, and how can we kind of debunk some of these myths that carbs are only things that make you fat and you can't eat them and all these other things? So we'll start with you, Coach Annalise.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for carbs. I feel like they're always getting picked on, hated on, all that nasty stuff. We were talking earlier just about how carbs are the number one fuel source to fuel the brain. They're so important. Now, you can get more nutrient dense sources of carbs, or you can get more calorically dense sources of carbs. So that's kind of like the breakdown of simple versus complex carbohydrates. So obviously we would prefer more of like a complex carbohydrate, which would be, your whole wheat pastas or brown rices, whole wheat bread, sweet potatoes, things like that are going to be a little bit more complex. They're going to have more micronutrients, more benefits, more fiber. They're going to keep you fuller longer. But it's just, it's part of the 3 macronutrients: protein, fat, and carbs, and we need a little bit of everything. We can't just say no carb, no fat, no protein, which I've never heard anyone say no protein. Everyone praises protein. And it's never been picked on. But it's an important part. It's an important part of a well-balanced diet. And it's, it needs to be included and not hated on.
Yeah.
Carbs.
What about your thoughts on that, Emily?
Well, I agree with everything that Coach Annalise said. I think it's just going to come down to more being educated about it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if we can just, press the point that get rid of the refined carbs, all of the, the white bread, the white pasta, all that, like that's not going to do a whole lot for you. But if we focus on all the benefits that whole grains, like Annalise talked about, she listed off a bunch of them. But if we can push that point that those are good for you and your body does need them, and if you eat those over the refined carbs, then you're going to stay fuller longer. One thing that I wanted to say was, when you're at the grocery store and you're looking at all these things, check out the nutrition label, because a great way to make sure that your whole grain is truly a whole grain and really, what you need is you can look at the carbohydrates. It'll tell you how many grams. So we'll say something says 35 grams of carbohydrates, and then look at your fiber content. Mm-hmm. And you want it to be a 5-to-1 ratio. And then that's a quality whole grain that would be beneficial for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And that's the part that it's looking at. If you're going to look at the labels, don't just look at the carbs. Let's keep coming down a little bit, and the fiber's the part, because fiber keeps you fuller longer. So not only does it help actually with the weight loss aspect of it too, that a lot of people go for on their diets. But what we talk about, it's not about diet. I know that that's the reason why a lot of people come to eat what they're eating, is because they want to lose weight typically. Let's just get you healthy. Because the thing is, it's not about losing the weight. It's about giving you a lifestyle that you're going to live. Mm-hmm. And if you're continuing in this mindset that I'm going to do this so that I can lose a little bit for the summer body, you're eventually the body's amazing, absolutely amazing, at the point that every time you do this, the yo-yo diet, you're actually going to lose the weight, but you're going to gain it back to like double a lot of the times. I always say, think of people who had their first babies. You never saw it. Then their second baby, and it's like, bam, like they were just, and then their third one, it's like, oh man, you already look pregnant. You're only 8 weeks. Like, of course you can't say that, but that's the thing. Your body is so good at remembering what has happened to it. And so continuing with that. So we are talking about fuel, but the one thing that I want, like, we do talk about the importance of eating, but for me, I feel like that may be lower on the list. I feel like sleep and water. Like, even before we get into the eating, that sleep and water are really important. So because you can eat right, but if you're not sleeping to even wash your brain out, we call it like the dishwasher cycle, is during the sleep. So what is the importance on fueling your brain, but also making sure that if you're going to fuel it right, you get adding sleep, and the importance of that. Coach Emily, we'll start with you.
Well, like we talked about, all the functions that your brain does, it needs a chance to reset, because it is still working while you're asleep. But give it that chance to reset so you can, mm-hmm. go about your day, do your thing. But with that said, I realized that sometimes with my 1-year-old, I realized that sometimes you can't always get the sleep that you need. And if that's the case, then I would say I feel like you just have to be in tune with yourself, be honest with yourself. If you're not getting the sleep that you need, then maybe take a time out in the middle of the day, just maybe meditate, maybe do a little bit of yoga, maybe just mindful breathing. Just give your mind, your body just a chance to rest, reset, because it does need that. And I feel like it really is important.
Mhm.
We talked about staying hydrated too. There are so many blood vessels going on in your brain. And so I think it's critical that you stay hydrated so you can keep, that blood flow going to your brain so it can make all those connections and, send all those impulses so that you can function at your highest capability.
Yeah. And that's very important to talk about is the aspect of like keeping it at its best functionality. And but if you're going to stress about what you're eating, and if you're going to stress if you didn't get your sleep, you're really going to hurt yourself and not have that justice to it. So if you, like you said, if you can't get that sleep, beating yourself up over it because you got to hit these certain marks is going to do more damage because of the stress, and the stress is the inflammation that keeps going, which I know we're going to talk about in a little bit. But Coach Annalise, I want to get your insight on this real quick on what your thoughts are about sleep and hydration in the part of fueling the brain.
Sure. The first thing that actually came to mind when you mentioned that was my routine. Like I just have like it's not a very strict routine, but a while back I made sure that I was like upping my exercise a little bit more because when I'm tired, I sleep much better when I exercise regularly. Like that's just me. So actually that was one of the biggest reasons why like I kind of started stepping it up and exercising a little bit more, whether it was just going for a walk, doing some weights, Pilates, mountain biking, whatever. I've been making it more of a priority not to look a certain way, not to fit into a certain size jeans. It was actually just to get my sleep under control because it was so bad. And so like that was just one of the things that I did. I quit drinking caffeine after a certain time, and having like a nightly routine, which I know is, I don't have kids, and I'm sure that nightly routines with kids can be much more difficult. So I know I can't even imagine, but for me, like I have a little routine that I go through, and it kind of like helps to ease me down and chill me out right before bed, and then I can't tell you, like, as soon as my head hits the pillow, I'm out. I'm done. I'm asleep. And I just think that for me, what works best is having a routine and making that exercise a priority because I really do just sleep much better. And then I just feel better in general whenever I'm exercising regularly.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And I am going to pop up what Dee said is that reading labels has really helped me fully understand what I'm
Mm-hmm.
putting into my body. Some things I thought were healthy, I realized weren't the best. And that is so true.
Mm-hmm.
Today, me and my husband, we went to go feed the cows. And we did not have any food with us. The only thing in there was Doritos. And I'm like, oh, it's like, and I had one, and I haven't had Doritos in years. And I had one, I was like, oh no. I was like, you can't just have one. For one, I was like,
Mm-mm.
this has got to be genetically modified. And then you look at it. And the thing is if it's got that many ingredients, like you got to imagine what's in there to make you like it literally makes you want to eat more. So if it's already controlling you at that point, like Oreos, how many people can eat one Oreo? That is almost impossible. And so finding the things that own your brain that release the dopamine, the reward mechanism that you want to keep going in with it. And so let's talk about that and the anti-inflammatory aspect on it and making sure that we really focus on foods that kind of, and again, this is all this to say this is really just your normal diet that you're supposed to have, or that is what is always recommended since you were a kid. But what are some things that we can recommend for anti-inflammatories and helping with that? So start with you, Coach Annalise.
I would say the first thing that I think of is berries, because that's very beneficial for you. Broccoli, all of your leafy greens, they're going to be high in vitamin K. And then I know that we had kind of touched on like nuts and just like healthy fatty foods, like that's going to be beneficial. And then dark chocolate, which I am of course very much a fan of, put a little bit of that in there. So yeah.
How about you, Emily?
Yeah, those are all great ones. Those are all the ones that I had kind of been thinking about. And they're accessible because I know for us where I'm at with all of this COVID craziness, it was really hard to find stuff at the grocery store except fresh produce. So it was always easy to find berries, cruciferous vegetables. So I feel like those are accessible to, the majority of people. They are rich in antioxidants, which will reduce inflammation and stress on your brain. And I know I was reading a study, well, several studies, and they all talk about how, berries and all these foods that are rich in antioxidants, they could reduce or delay age-related neurodegenerative diseases. So I thought, that's huge. That's huge. And so many of the chronic diseases that are around today, heart disease, diabetes, and we could go down the list, but a lot of them, there are correlations with inflammation. And so if we can focus on foods that kind of reduce this inflammation, then it will be beneficial, not just up here, but all the way through the entire body.
And that's the one thing I do want to talk about, antioxidants. It's anti, so not oxidants. So oxygens is really what it is. And there's, to get kind of nerdy with y'all real quick, is there's something called the Krebs cycle. I don't know if y'all remember that in physiology, but there's
nightmare.
Okay, so there's glycolysis that breaks down carbs. There's lipolysis that breaks down fat. And then they all go to this one cool guy called the Krebs cycle. And then it then goes into another transport chain. But in that aspect of it, what it actually happens is antioxidation. And so where they're in one of the parts of the system and how an oxygen keeps popping out. And so it literally, antioxidants, if you ever heard of rust, literally your insides are rusting. That's how they get old. So the point of, if you had a car that's outside rusting because it rusts from oxidation, because oxygen hits it, that's typically how things break down. So that's the importance of having the antioxidants, because it can caps on to the oxygen and take it off, and with the breathing aspect of it. So for that, I think it's important for people to know in our bodies and how they work that antioxidants aren't just something that we say that's just good for us. They actually have effects. Just think, if you saw your car rusting, would you take care of it? You would. You wouldn't just let it just rust out and then you'd have to go buy another one. Well, you can't buy a new body. It's yours. You only get one for life. And so that's the reason why we talk a lot about the importance of eating and the way to eat. So,
really quick before we move on the antioxidants, sometimes maybe it's hard to be like, well, how much antioxidant, what has the most, what has the least? And one way that I learned was that if you were to sit it out, and if it browns quickly, then you know that it doesn't have as many antioxidants. So like if you left a blackberry out, it's not going to brown for a long time, versus an apple, which will brown fairly quickly. So the blackberry has more antioxidant. And that's an easy way that anyone can say, oh, okay, this is really rich in it. Not so much. Still good for you, but not as rich.
Yeah, I think that's true too, because one of my favorite things that I did not realize had and I started calling them super seeds, which you've already talked about, is chia seeds. Chia seeds are packed. And I'll tell you what I did is, actually there was a group of us that I was in clients, and we actually had them all taste them, because I'm going to be honest, I had never even tried one, and I had a guy that always talked about how awesome they were, and he put them in everything, and I'm like, they're just slimy, you can't. But they don't actually do that. If you put them on your yogurt and then you ate them, and that's what we're like, oh, these don't even taste. I'm like, and they
crunchy.
Yeah, that's all it is. So like, if you're spending that much money for like vitamins and minerals, like a lot of people spend a lot of money on, that's kind of a secret weapon that you can use, is chia seeds. I like them a lot. But even all this to say, and we talked about longevity, that some of these help with the memory. We are talking about food, but one thing that we know is that gratitude is actually one of the things that can help with our longevity and also with our memory. There's something called the Nun study. Y'all have heard me talk about it way too many times probably. But in the Nun study, it was where they looked at nuns at the beginning of their convent and seen how they talked about their life, if they were grateful or if it was just very fact-based. And then they compared it to their longevity at the end of the life. And at the end of the life, the people that had gratitude actually outlived. And then the cool thing is it's kind of morbid and decrepit at the same time. Afterwards, they were allowed to analyze their brains. And those people that were more grateful actually should have had Alzheimer's, should have had memory, should have had dementia, or memory loss and dementia issues, but they didn't. And they linked it back to their gratitude because they got to compare both. So in that aspect, eating right matters. It does. But how we control our thoughts and how we think about our foods and not putting this extra stress on ourselves, which is already here. So our goal, I think, with this is just to give you information on good fuel for food, for your brain, because this is mental health month. It's important that our mental health, it matters. So I guess to finish this out, if anybody has any questions, feel free to bring them out and talk about them or comment them, and we would love to talk about them. But what are your final thoughts on fueling your brain for success in food or in life or however it may be? Coach Annalise, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I can't emphasize this enough. We mentioned some really great foods that, offer a lot of health benefits, and it's great to incorporate them into a well-balanced diet. We're not sitting here saying all you can eat is blueberries for the rest of your life, or you're going to, no, that's not what we're saying. We're just saying incorporate a little bit of everything. You want a well-balanced diet. You want a diet that you enjoy, you want to enjoy the diet. You don't want to feel like, ugh, I'm on a diet. You just want to eat and enjoy it, but also fuel your body at the same time. And sometimes for some of us, it can take a little bit of time. It can take practice to develop a healthy relationship with food and, not be afraid of certain foods or try to incorporate new foods. And so I would just say, listen, Emily, you mentioned this earlier, check in with yourself. How do you feel? If you feel like you're being too restrictive on yourself, back off, calm down. And if you want to try incorporating new foods, I know I feel like I talk about my garden in every video, so I'm sorry, but but we have blueberries out there just chilling, and I need to go pick them once it quits raining. And I'm excited because I get to make my overnight oats. And so find foods that you love, find ways to incorporate these foods that do just tend to have better nutritive value that can benefit your brain and body in general. Find a way to enjoy it and incorporate them.
I agree. How about you, Coach Emma?
Well, I know that we're running short on time, so I'll just keep it short. But I would say, just to go over a quick checklist of kind of like what we talked about to optimize your brain function. We don't want to overeat. We don't want to undereat. We want to feel comfortable. And the things that we eat, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's kind of like what, we've talked about it, but just eat your fruits and veggies, throw some fish in there, throw some nuts in there, seeds, you're good to go. You know what I mean? We don't have to overcomplicate it. Make sure you're getting enough sleep, stay hydrated, exercise regularly. I think that's important too. And reduce the stress. We don't need the extra stress. So maybe I have I call it my I'm grateful book, where I write down something every day that I'm grateful for. Maybe it could be something that happened, or maybe it was a bad day and I'm like, okay, I'm just grateful that the sun was out. But, even something little like that could help. And, maybe reduce your stress through like what I talked about. Maybe try yoga. Give it a try. Why not? Or meditation, mindful breathing, something like that. And I think you'll be successful.
I agree. And that's the important part, is finding what works for you. What needs to fuel your brain? Yes, physiologically, we do know that nuts, seeds, looking at carbs that are have more nutritive value to it. Omegas, we know those help. We do. So yes, but the thing is, if you're not going to eat them, if you're not going to touch them, we can talk about them all day. But nothing's going to happen. So find what you will do and find what works for you. And then I'm also going to say, reach out to us. As always, I would love for y'all to reach out to the coaches or reach out to me. And we are here to help you. We are here as a resource. If you ever want to, it's worksby.com. I do not have that up, and I should. Sorry, y'all. But please feel free to reach out to us. And you can even take the coaches quiz. And or you can just reach out to Annalise or Emily individually as well. So if you have any always email us, message us. We're here. We're here for you. And that's our point. Because we believe people are awesome and we want to support you in any way, in any fathom that we can. So that, because we've all had, and the thing is that we all have our experiences. We all know from experience, we have the education behind it, but we also all know from experience what it's like to not live like that healthy and how sick you can get. And so I guess that's another reason why we're all probably so passionate about it too. But, and just to say, we're here for you. And I'll say all of our coaches are likewise in the same, in their passion in the education, but also in the experience aspect. Because that was something that was big for me, is finding people that have a heart for it. I want like-hearted people, not exactly, they don't have to be exactly like-minded, but the like-hearted. Y'all have a passion. And I'm forever talking about gratitude. I'll say my gratitudes for these two right here. To end it out is Coach Annalise. I am so grateful. If you all have not noticed the marketing, Coach Annalise has actually been doing a good bit of it too.
Stop it. It's been fun. It really has been very fun.
She is a rock star at it. And Coach Emily is actually starting to do articles for us. So we're so excited for those to be popped out soon too. And it's just a blessing to have amazing people that support me. And then hopefully I get to support y'all back. So I am blessed forever. So I hope everybody has an awesome and blessed day, and we'll be back next Sunday. And then also to add on this, that next week we usually do the Saving or Surviving Quarantine by Spreading Life. We're actually going to pause that for next week. You'll see some reruns that will be popping up. Feel free to join in. You can still comment. But we're actually going to be restarting the series because I don't know about y'all. I'm kind of tired of the word quarantine and surviving and everything else. So we are going to be starting basically the same thing, but it is called Unapologetically Bold. And it's things that we are, I don't know about y'all, but I've said sorry about too many things in my life. And it's the things that we should be talking about, like saying gratitude's important, or saying that, hey, you do not have to care about weight loss. Like, it's important to know your body. Like, some things I'm like, I'm sorry, but. And so it is a series that it's about being unapologetically bold in our statements, but in a loving way that is patient, kind, honest, and understanding. So I'm excited for that series to come up. And so I hope I will say that Dee had this too. Thank you, ladies. Very informative.
Yay. No problem.
We all hope you have an awesome and blessed day, y'all. Bye.
Bye.